Hey friends, John here, the Crafty Tech Guy. Hey, I just wanted to do this tutorial on how we made this over-the-top disco ball ghost wreath the other night on TikTok. So I hope you find this beneficial. Right now I am fluffing out a black evergreen base. I got this base a few years ago, I think from Deco Exchange. So here I am pushing each end into an oval. Because when you stretch the wreath out into an oval, it just gives you more space to add larger elements. So now there is my ultimate collapsible mesh roller from Susie's Wreath Shop. I'll put a link in the description so that you can go purchase this if you want to. It's great for cutting a lot of ribbons at one time. Here I'm loading my mesh onto the roller. And I'm putting the mesh in the order of how I want to separate it when I go to put the mesh into the wreath. So I want the striped first, and then a black, and then a pink. But you can also use this for like wrapping paper. I also use it when for my sublimation prints, when it's a long roll. That fits perfectly on that roll, and I can just roll it out and cut those prints. So it has a lot of uses. It's a great tool to have in your arsenal. So I'm just rolling that or pushing that through that little ruler there, and it holds it down. So I'm cutting these, just straightening up the edge there. So I'm cutting these at 24 inches. So I have my mesh, I have my holder there, mesh roller, set at the 3 mark on my mat, so that I'm going to cut at the 3, and I'm pulling them over to 27 on the mat. So that way I get a perfect 24-inch cut. And all you do is, as you can see, I just kind of did a little too much there, so you can just pull it back in behind the ruler, adjust it a little bit. I think I ended up 3 and 27 for a 24-inch cut. So there you go. You just do that, and then I like to put my mesh into an empty tote so that it all goes into the tote and has a cool place to rest. So I'm just going to continue to cut these, and I'm going to cut the entire roll because I'm going to put all but maybe a few pieces into the wreath. So at 24 inches, like I said, I do cut all 3 rolls. And make sure when you're cutting this mesh, you have a really sharp rotary cutter and a really good mat. So, and I'm pressing down pretty hard. That kind of seals the edges of that mesh. If you have a really sharp rotary cutter and a really good mat, and you press down with a little bit of pressure, it seals, kind of seals and cuts off the ends of that mesh really well and keeps them from fraying. All right, so now we're going to add the mesh into the wreath, and I'm just doing easy ruffle. So I'm just going straight up the center of the mesh with my hands, my fingers, walking it right up the center of that mesh. And then I'm going to take the center of that ruffle, and I'm going to put it in between 2 of the pine tines and twist. So I'm going to go around the edge of the wreath first, the wreath base first. So I'll do striped mesh, black mesh, pink mesh, and just complete that pattern all the way around the outside edge. And I'm putting them, there may be like an inch of space, an inch or 2 of space in between each piece of mesh. Maybe just an inch. So maybe like I put it into 2 ties, maybe I skip a tie, and then I put the next piece into the next 2 ties, so that, because the mesh is going to expand, so they're going to be tight next to each other. And then once I go all the way around the edge, I'm going to go into the center, and then I'm going to go around the inside ring. So it's going to be a really full, stuffed full of mesh base, because this is the point where it's very important to build a really good foundation, especially when you're making an over-the-top wreath stuffed full of big embellishments and attachment, ribbon, especially like, let's say this is a Christmas wreath, a Christmas Candyland wreath, and you're putting in big candy pieces and lollipops and so forth, you need a lot of foundation and real estate down there for things to stick to. All right. So make sure you really spend time building a good base. I probably spent, well, I was live on TikTok. Okay. So I was answering questions and we were laughing and there was music playing and we were cutting up. So this entire project took me about 2.5 hours on TikTok. But you could probably get this entire project done in about, I don't know, 45 minutes if you were just making it on your own without going live and so forth. But again, spending the time, maybe 15, 20 minutes, really stuffing this base full, I think is extremely important for creating, again, that really solid foundation for your wreath base. And this goes for whether it's an evergreen base, whether it's an evergreen swag, a garland, trying to think, even if it's an elevated wreath form, you really want a good foundation. That's why if you ever watch me make a evergreen or a elevated wreath form, I usually put like 21-inch poofs around the top and bottom, and then I'll come in with a ruffle as well, maybe a woodland ruffle. Sometimes I'll do 3 curls because again, we're just making sure we have a full base before we stuff it full of all the fun things. So if you're wondering where I got this mesh came from mbcraftsupplyco.com. And I think I said the wreath base a couple of years ago from Deco Exchange, but you can get these wreath bases from like the Wreath Shop, from Trendy Tree, from Craft Outlet, although I mean Craft Outlet's a great place to shop from. I just prefer shopping from smaller businesses like the Wreath Shop, Trendy Tree, Deco, places like that. So, or MB Craft Supply Co. So I'm just going around putting in the mesh. Okay, now we have we're finishing up putting the mesh in here in the inner circle. So you can see I've gone all the way around the edge. I've gone there in the center between the edge and the inside loop. So I went down that little center channel. So I'm putting in these last pieces into the wreath. So as you can see, look how full that base is. So many different places to stuff things. We're just going to add a few more pieces here into the center. I see some holes that need just a few more pieces of mesh. Okay, finished up the mesh here, putting in our last piece, and there we have it, our completely full mesh base, all ready for all the things that we're going to add to it. Perfect, perfect, perfect. Let's move our tote out of the way, and you can see there I had a few pieces of mesh left over. So now we're going to add in these disco ball garlands. So I got these at Michael's, and if you pay attention to their website or you have their app, you'll get notifications when they have online sales. So about a week ago, they had an online sale for 35% off an online order. So I was able to get all of this, these disco ball items, these garlands, and then 2 different sizes of disco balls, maybe like a 4-inch and a 6-inch, and then some disco ball bats and some disco ball pumpkins. They were so cool. So I just loaded up on all things disco at Michael's. So I'm just weaving this ball garland into the mesh. So I start by, what you can't see is I'm taking the end of that. I bent the end into like towards the center of the wreath. And so I took that hook, put it in and wrapped it around that steel ring so that it was really secure. And then what I'm trying to do is you'll notice the spine of this ball garland is white. I want to make sure the white is hidden. And then of course the disco balls that are attached to some wire, all of that is able to come up through the mesh, and then I can maneuver the disco balls where I want them throughout the wreath. So I'm not going in a straight line. I'm kind of zigzagging it so that it creates a pattern. Also, by zigzagging it, it leaves me open spots in between so that I can add ribbon, I could add other disco balls, I could add other picks. So don't just go like completely in a straight line. So I've seen it where people will add it right into a point in the middle channel and then just go right around the middle channel. Well, it doesn't really give your wreath a lot of dimension. So adding dimension and better movement into the wreath is taking this garland and zigzagging it through the wreath. Plus, it just spreads the disco balls out more to where they look like almost like individual picks that you've put in throughout the wreath. So this was a little bit of a tedious process because sometimes the ball garland doesn't want to go exactly where you want it to. Plus, you need to move some of the mesh out of the way so that the spine of this garland is around the unused pine ties. So that's what I'm doing. I'm finding 2 pine tines in between the layers of mesh. I'm pushing that spine far down into the mesh and close to that metal ring, and I'm twisting 3 or 4 times those 2 pine tines to secure that spine down into the wreath. And I'm going to do this all the way around. This wreath is going to take a full garland and about a quarter of another garland. So you'll see that here in a minute. All right, so I grabbed my next garland and I'm just kind of positioning the garland there in between that space that doesn't have the disco balls, and I'm figuring out about how much I need. And I'm going to need about a quarter of this second garland, so I just snip it there with my snips. I like to use Cobalt wire cutters from Lowe's. They're my favorite after testing, I don't know, 3 or 4 different types of types of wire cutters. Those are my favorite for me and my hands. So I'm just figuring out where exactly I need to position and weave in this last piece of ball garland so that it matches and stays with the kind of the fluid motions that I have of the other full ball garland. So again, I'm taking the end, I'm kind of bending it into an L shape, pushing it into the mesh, and then I'm twisting it around that steel bar, or the steel ring, I mean, so that it's really well, really secured. And then again, I'm just weaving it through, pushing the white spine down into the mesh, tying it in with 2 pine tines, and I'll continue this process until the garland is fully into the wreath. Okay, the ball garland's all in. Let's look at where we're going to put our wreath attachment. So, all right, so our wreath attachment is this cute Dolly Parton inspired kind of disco night out on the town ghost. She is absolutely adorable. Cute little pink cowboy hat, some sparkly rhinestones on her hat. She's holding a little disco ball purse. She's got some fun fringe on her cowboy boots down there. And this adorable wreath attachment was made by Brooke Domenico with Forever Brooke Designs. You can find her on TikTok and on Facebook and Instagram. So these are custom wreath attachments. So you have to request her to make one of these for you. But go reach out to her and get one of these adorable ghosts and make your own version of this wreath. So we received these when Max and I were down at General Wholesale earlier this year. She brought each one of us one of these, and Max made his a few weeks ago, and so this was my version of what I wanted to do with this beautiful attachment. So I'm just pushing these chenille stems through, and I'm using, I don't know if I showed y'all this or if you can see in the video, I'm using my new product called the Riedel. It's a 6-inch long needle that has a little eye at the end, and it's 6 inches. It's plastic, so it's not gonna, you know, stab you. But it just allows you to get a chenille stem or a zip tie through like this hugely thick, probably 8-inch thick base, as well as like a grapevine or a thick moss base, a thick elevated wreath form, whatever it is. I had these designed because the typical wreath needles are short, and I wanted a long one to get through these bases because I was using a short one from Walmart, but they get lost. See, oh, someone gave me a gift during the video. Little cowboy hat there to go with our cowboy ghost. So that wreath needle that I have in my hand, you can go to thecraftytechguy.com. That's my website, and get you a pack of wreath needles. You get a pack of 5 for, I think, $3.99. So very, very, very affordable, but they are so much fun. Oh, here I am. This is where I'm explaining the wreath needle. So that's the Riedel. My husband named it. I was calling it the wreath needle, and he goes, "Why don't you just call it the Riedel?" I was like, okay, the Riedel it is. So the Riedel was born. All right, so it is a fantastic little tool, and like I said, very, very affordable. All right, so let's see. All right, so I get the attachment on here. I'm just continuing to pull those chenille stems through the base. I'm pulling like one side of the chenille stem through one side of a ring, and then the other chenille stem for that part on the other side of the ring, and I'm just twisting it to where the attachment is secure onto the base. The next element that I'm adding are these 3 disco balls, again from Michaels. So you can go to michaels.com and again watch for their sales. So I noticed that based upon where I place my attachment and I'm looking through my wreath, I've got 3 little holes that I designed based upon where I put the garland to put these 3 larger disco balls. So what I'm going to do is each one of these disco balls has an end, like an ornament top. But I'm not going to hold out that the way that they've put it on there is going to be completely secure. So here in a minute, you're going to see me. I'm placing them where I think they should go. I decide, no, I don't need 2 silver on one side. I need a pink on one side and a silver on one side and a silver on the other. So as you can see here, see that little nub or that little attachment point on the end. Let me put my phone on silent. Sorry, y'all. So I'm taking hot glue and I'm hot gluing all around that little hook part there on the end. And then once I super glue all 3 of these, I'm going to give it I don't know, 4 or 5 minutes. And I think we just talked and hung out on TikTok while these were setting up so that I could get them really secure before I attach them into the wreath. Okay, once they're secure, I took a 20-inch chenille stem, and you can get these 20-inch chenille stems in my store, thecraftytechguy.com. I have them in 5 different colors: white, black, green, red, and natural. So now I'm taking my Riedel and I'm going to push those chenille stems all the way through that thick mesh base. I'm going to take one end and put it on one side of a metal tie or metal ring, and then I'll take the other end and put it on a metal ring, and I'm going to push it down tight to where, but not too tight. I don't want to pop that end off of that disco ball. So I'm going to put it down tight, but before I actually completely tie it in, I'm going to go in and really put a bunch of hot glue underneath that ball so that that ball is hot glued to that mesh that is secure in there. And there's pine ties underneath there, so I'm also hot gluing it to the pine ties. Because that's really, anytime you're hot gluing elements into a wreath, you really want those elements hot glued to a pine tie because that is the most secure. Just hot gluing an element to mesh, that mesh will compress or change shape over time. That's just what mesh does. So then what could happen is your attachments could become floppy and kind of almost like they're falling out of the wreath, and it's just because the mesh has changed shape over time. But if you make sure your embellishments or your elements that you're adding to your wreath are glued to the actual ties that are attached to the metal ring, they're going to hold up in place well, for as long as that hot glue stays attached to those pine ties. So now that that hot glue is in there, finding those 2 chenille stems under there, and I'm just making sure they're tied. So we're going to do this for all three disco balls around the wreath. Okay, our disco balls are added, and now I'm going to add some ribbon. So, not sure what I'm doing down there. I'm not sure I knew what I was doing down there. Okay. All right, so there's my ribbon. I'm using this beautiful black and white checked hot pink Fairysilk, and I opted not to do a bow in this wreath. I really didn't have a good spot for a big bow. It really didn't make sense. I've got my attachment. I've got 3 other big elements. So in my mind, I thought, you know what, let's just do some ribbon tails. So I'm taking the Fairysilk, and it's double-sided. So I'm taking the pink side and folding it up so that the ends of the ribbon are pink. And typically on luxury ribbon like this, you don't dovetail. You kind of want to just fold up the ends. And then depending on, you know, sometimes the ribbon really holds its shape when you fold it over. For some reason, this piece didn't want to do that, so I just persuaded it to do what I wanted it to do with a little bit of hot glue. Because y'all know, I mean, you gotta tell these things what to do in these wreaths. They can't tell us what to do. So I'm just folding it over. And then what I'm gonna do is once I fold this over and get it to exactly where I want it, I think I came back. There was a little piece of there that I wasn't happy with. So I came back in and cut that little piece off. And when I folded it over, it wasn't perfectly, I don't know, it had some texture that I didn't like on that pink part. So now I'm gluing that down. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to gather the center of this beautiful piece of ribbon, and then I'm just going to stick it down into the wreath. So I'm just taking that piece, finding 2 pine ties, pushing it down in there, taking the 2 pine tines, and twisting that piece of ribbon there into the wreath, and then folding out. So basically I'm just adding tails. So that's all I'm going to do to this wreath, is just add some tails strategically through the bottom. I had these really cool fluffy ball picks from the wreath shop, and they still have them, at least as of right now when this video is recorded, because I went and ordered more yesterday from Sarah over at the wreath shop. All right, so I'm going to take this pick, add some hot glue, and I'm going to put this pick down into the center of that ribbon tail, just to cover up those pine tines, and because let's just face it, it's adorable, absolutely adorable. So I'm going to do this same process 4 or 5 different points throughout the wreath. Okay, so we've placed ribbon now at this point 4 places around the wreath, and I have 1 place left. I think they're at the top. Then I'm going to add 1 more piece. So I'm just pulling off 1 piece. And again, I am using luxury ribbon. All right. So, you know, it is a more expensive ribbon. And as you can see, I'm not afraid to cut it at all, because my philosophy is you cut it, you use it, you sell the wreath, you make some money, and then you get to buy more luxury ribbon. So if you don't cut it and use it and sell it in a wreath, then, you know, you may not have the money to buy more. So I love buying luxury ribbon. It's so much fun. So, but I'm just using it strategically. I'm not putting it I'm not putting the whole roll in a wreath. I'm just using 5 pieces. So I'm taking 1 more and putting it there in that upper right-hand corner. So I'm just tying that piece in, and then I'm going to add another fluffy ball there into the center. And that'll give me some ribbon and the fluffy balls into the wreath, and so more elements. Again, I love these balls. They're so much fun. I can see so many things that you could do with these. They just add a fun texture, an extra dimension, and it brings out the pink and the attachment, the pink and the ribbon, the pink and the mesh. So just another fun element. So now I have these ball picks that I also got from the wreath shop, and they're going to kind of go more with the lighter pink in the hat and in the cowboy boots. So I'm going to take this one pick, and you can actually get 3 different cuts on this pick. So I'm going to split it up into 3 different pieces. And there are some places throughout the wreath that just need a little filler. They just need a little something something. And that's where these came into play. And I just went around, and again, it's just at your discretion. As you look at your wreath, you will see where there's like little holes, things that just need a little something something. So I had these that I got in a kit, Halloween skeleton, pink skeleton wreath kit from the wreath shop. And I decided to use them in this project versus the other project because, well, I just wanted to. So I'm going to take these and strategically put them in those places around the wreath where it needs them. Okay, so next, I have a little hook over there on the wall behind me, and especially these big over-the-top wreaths, I like to hang on that hook. And sometimes I use my floor easel. I have a floor easel that I also designed with, but I didn't think about bringing it out during this design. So I just like to kind of look at it there on the wall, get a different view of the wreath, and just make sure everything is zhuzhed and looks like it should. Make sure there's not any holes that I didn't see when the wreath was on my table. And it just gives me a better view. And I definitely recommend you doing this, taking your wreath and putting it on a wall or on a door just to get a different angle. Okay, and here is our finished wreath. If you like watching me design, make sure you follow me over on TikTok at The Crafty Tech Guy on TikTok, The Crafty Tech Guy on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. So thanks so much for watching this video. Hope you have a great day.